why don't we bifurcate this a bit and try to move the needle away from looking at everything as a disease and just looking at it as health. So from root causes of disease, I said, what are the root causes of health? There is a known field called salutology, but that's public health, right? But salutogenesis is different. It's finding the root causes of health. And then when you find the root causes of health, then you see that there's no actual goal. The goal is actually optimizing continuously. Unlike when you're in disease, either you're cured or you maintain it chronically. That's where you get, right? Either you're cured or you're not. That's your endpoint. But for us, it's a continuous endpoint.
Yeah, I was trying to do the heart with my kids the other day, but my hand's much bigger than theirs.
So there's a millennial way of doing it. This is I don't, you kind of do it off your cheek or whatever. And anyway, I think we're live. So
yes, we're live.
Love to everybody. Happy November 6th. This is when we're recording this for those of you who are listening. Hello to Ted and Scott. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys too. It's nice to be with you both. We haven't done this in a little while. We tend to do it through the end of the year for recaps, and we'll be doing it again with Jody Duvall, who's in Australia. But today, I'm very excited to chat a little bit about our symposium, the Health Optimization Medicine and Practice Symposium, that's going to be happening December 11th and 12th in Las Vegas at Caesars Palace, right before A4M. If anybody's going to be joining us at A4M, you can join us a couple days before, but why would you want to do that? What is HOMeHOPE? Who are these people? Maybe this is the first time you're listening to Dr. Ted, myself, or Boomer ever. And so we want to give you an introduction to who we are, what we do. And if you've been listening to our podcast for a while, the Smarter Not Harder podcast, also, I just want to say thank you and be very grateful for those of you who listened. It's a lot of fun for us to record. And we've had a lot of great guests. Dr. Ted's had some fantastic ones, Boomer, myself as well. But today we're the guests and we're the hosts and we're the interviewers and all kind of in between. So
donkey and driver. I love it.
All those things. So to start off, Dr. Ted, it's good to see you. Good morning in DC.
Yes, I know. As Boomer has said, it's November 6th today, and it's a great way to remember that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your attention. So pay attention to the things that matter to you today, not to the things that worry you. Okay?
I love that. Is it Guy Fawkes Day or Fawkes Day? How do you say his name? It's
Remember the 5th of November.
The 5th.
It's Guy Fawkes Day.
That's the 5th.
V for Vendetta, right?
So, great movie. Yeah. I was thinking about that as you were saying it. But yes, the quality of our life and our attention. I love that. So Ted, let's talk about your attention to the health and wellness.
A+ on the segue. A+ on the segue.
That's right. The health and wellness of and moving the needle on health. So the background I'll give you here is, so I met Dr. Ted back in 2017 in January in LA. And I was walking through Chinatown with Dr. Ted at the time. And it was the first time I had met him. And he was telling me about this thing that he was developing called Health Optimization Medicine and Practice. And I remember looking at the street lights and the lamps, and Dr. Ted's a very accomplished individual. If you all look at his bio, either on our website or some other location, it is a long one. And we're going to get into every single detail today for you, Ted. Just kidding. No, we're not going to do that. But we had this discussion. I was like, well, Ted, you've done all these things in your life and you've had all these accomplishments. Like, what do you really hope to do with HOMeHOPE? And he said, if we could just move the needle on health just a little bit, that would be a win, a huge win. So Ted, bring us back to understanding like why you developed the framework in the first place. I know that's a long time ago now, but what is HOMeHOPE in your estimation and how did it all develop? And you can take 75 minutes to do this, or you can take 3 minutes. Either way, it's up to you.
Well, in the first instance, there's something about what you said, about moving the needle. Actually, my imagery of that was from an essay by Stephen Jay Gould. And he said, we are the mayflies of evolution. We appeared in evolution a second before midnight. So there's been billions of years that have happened before us. And here we are trying to think that we know everything, right? Whereas all we have are actually models of the world. And one of those models, of course, is the scientific model, right? And a model works only because it can be predictive. So, for example, illness medicine will work, right? Because it's predictive, it can work on populations. And antibiotics will work because they will work on a certain population. Surgical techniques will work because they will work on a particular population. And therefore, we have what's called the evidence-based illness medicine, right? Because it's based on populations. So that second before midnight, I said many things can happen, and that's like a bifurcation point in chaos theory or in complex adaptive systems, right? So I said, why don't we bifurcate this a bit and try to move the needle away from looking at everything as a disease and just looking at it as health. So from root causes of disease, I said, what are the root causes of health? There is a known field called salutology, but that's public health, right? But salutogenesis is different. It's finding the root causes of health. And then when you find the root causes of health, then you'll see that there's no actual goal. The goal is actually optimizing continuously. Unlike when you're in disease, either you're cured or you maintain it chronically. That's where you get, right? Either you're cured or you're not. That's your endpoint. But for us, it's a continuous endpoint, which makes it a lot more difficult. And the easiest way to actually understand this is to take a look at cancer cells. Cancer cells have a directive to survive and reproduce, just as we do have, as an organism, have a evolutionary directive to survive and reproduce. However, in health optimization medicine, we look down at the cellular level and say, okay, now pretend you're a cancer cell and you're basically dosing me with all of these toxic chemicals. I want to survive. And therefore, I will break away from the control of the body's cellular network and do my primordial directive, right, which is to survive and reproduce. So at the level of the cancer cell, yeah, it's good for me, but at the level of us, it's actually not good for us. So then you could see now that the axis in health optimization shifts into the cell, away from the organ into the cell. And you know that the cell underlies everything within the body. Right? So now you're not looking at hearts, livers, brains, etc. You're just looking at the cell. And I said, if the oncologist is going to blast off those cancer cells, who's going to take care of the healthy cells of the body? Who's going to shore them up? And if you realize it, there's no one taking care of your nucleus, your mitochondria, my cytoplasm, your cell membrane, etc. And I said, well, it's time that we have the science and technology for it. Why not us? Why don't we start something that's new and foundational, right? Why not take a look at the cell and its networks, which we now call the holobiont network, right? It's another word that we have in there of the human being as an ecosystem of cells, right? And each cell is actually different organisms, like mitochondria and bacteria.
So I guess we lost Dr. Ted for a minute there.
We did lose Dr. Ted. And, we were talking a little bit about, he was kind of honing into something that we've talked at length about. He explains it in different ways, which is good because we all need to hear stories in different ways in order to understand it. But Dr. Ted was talking about the unit of selection in health optimization medicine and practice, which is kind of a term that I think was originally talked about by Richard Dawkins. And he kind of said the unit of selection is the gene, but the unit of selection in health optimization medicine and practice being the cell. And so with that, I'm going to do the old bump set over to Dr. Ted again to talk a little bit about the unit of selection being the cell and how we can use that as a bifurcation point to really move the needle on health.
Yes, when you look at the cell, and the technology now exists to take a look at what's inside the cell. So why not take a look at what's inside the cell? So my complaint, or my hue and cry, as I say, for many years now is that we've been to DNA-centric. DNA this, DNA that. That DNA is mainly structural, right? So it determines the enzymes or the structure of enzymes or proteins. But in the end, all of those undergo post-transcriptional and post-translational changes, which is actually related to the environment. So I said, is there any indicator of what's happening now? The thing that I hate the most is when, magazines would say vitamin C is good for you or zinc is good for you and so on and so forth. Is there a way of measuring that now? Well, there is, and it's in a science called metabolomics, right? It's been wrapped up 50 years in the lab. It's now found its way into healthcare providers' offices, but people don't know what to do with it. And they don't know what to do with it because A, it's biochemistry, right? Where most doctors just skated by, and B, it's read as a network. And in a network, you touch one node, everything else in the network moves. So you cannot just move one piece and expect that everything will happen, right? So what does this mean? Also, it means that it becomes personalized, right? What's given to you is going to be different from the other person, exactly because this type of practice is personalized. So health optimization medicine is really very simple. You measure the level of the metabolites, you compare them to the optimal ranges. Note, optimal ranges between 21 to 30 years old, or evolutionarily derived values like for vitamin D, right? So we're not using illness medicine values. That's very important, because our patients or clients will usually come to me and say, hey, look, my XYZ is normal. It's like, no, it doesn't mean anything to me, right? Because that's not in the optimal range. And then the last is, the medicine part of it, the practice part of it, is that the first part that we give are actually what's called bioidenticals and bioactives. We have to give you exactly what the body uses to heal itself. For example, instead of cyanocobalamin, we give you methylcobalamin, right? And then instead of folic acid, we give you 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. So first use that. The second would be your phytoceuticals. Men would be using Tribulus terrestris, for example. That's you recall malongiflora, right? To increase the testosterone levels, and all of that. Those are plants. And
big words that mean Tonkat Ali, right?
And then there's fungiceuticals, right? And I don't mean the psychedelic mushrooms, but they could be used for health optimization, I think. But anyway, and then there's the bacteria. For example, your life probiotic falls in that, and then of course the bacteriophages. And bacteriophages are big in France. So viruses that actually attack your bacteria. And then the last will be the drugs. So that's a really very simple 1, 2, 3. Measure the level of metabolites, compare them to the ranges between 21 and 30, or an evolutionary or derived value like vitamin D, and essentially do a network-wide range shifting. Right. To balance that, or you do a ratio correction in the case of omega-3 to omega-6 ratios, for example. Then you do ratio corrections to get back to optimal ranges when you were young. That means when you were young, you have not eaten too much of the omega-6 fats as you have at an older age.
Hypothetically, it depends on the situation at this point. I mean, what I've always thought about, and what I think really gravitated towards Ted, was understanding that this wasn't taking the place of any other type of specialty. It was a very new specialty that was becoming like more of a foundation, the one ring to rule them all kind of deal, right? Everything is underlying needing for health. If that's not being addressed, everything else is going to suffer over time.
Well, that's exactly the thing that our medical schools lack, right? From anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry, we're shoved immediately to pathology. Well, you don't know how the system optimally runs. Yeah, and yet you're already thrust into, okay, this is how it breaks down, right?
Oh,
so it's just like saying the cars are better. They say, okay, you have a slight tire pressure difference between this and that tire. We have no such thing, but now this specialty aims to address that, right? So your car will still be running, but it will not be running optimally or the most efficiently. And that's what I intend to do here, right? That's what we intend to do in health optimization medicine. It's like, what are those subtle toxicities and borderline deficiencies that can be rebalanced in you, right? To the levels between you were 21 and 30 years old.
Right, exactly, yeah. The thing I wanted to mention here, and Boomer, if you want to chime in. So you created this in the Manila, and 10 years, and you're in DC, Paris, your tricontinental practice. You brought it over here in 2017. We incorporated it as a nonprofit. We created the framework. We created the education out of your framework with a 7-module certification program, the essential certification in HOMeHOPE. And then somehow we met Boomer at a conference in 2019, and he became the CEO in like record time, right? Boomer, what brought you to HOMeHOPE on your end? And
this is a good question. Yeah. So I think, and I'm glad you came about this question in the way you did, because one of the things that I saw immediately when I was talking to both you and Dr. Ted was that this is a very elegant framework in the sense that while there's a lot of big words floated around, the elegance of it is in its simplicity. Each of the 7 modules addresses various lifestyle factors, but also nutrients and networks within the body to provide somebody a good framework by which to select the lifestyle modifications in the case of the practitioner, or by which to select the technologies. Let's say if you're a person that a client of this framework, right? Mm-hmm. By giving you really a data-driven approach, but also that framework to select, it also makes this world of health a lot simpler for people to understand. We are all inundated with headlines every day that are seemingly contradictory. One day coffee is good for you, the other day coffee is bad for you, right? But how do you know? And health optimization medicine and practice, to me, in listening to both of you talk about it, it just made sense. And it's a framework that was absolutely necessary to simplify the world that we live in, or this particular sector of the world, health. And as a result, wanted to help usher that along in any way I could. As a guy trying to figure it out myself on the internet, in the various dark corners of the interwebs, whether it be Discord channels or, Reddit. And again, those 7 modules, whether it be chronobiology or biological rhythms or exposomics or the environment that we live in, or just your gut immune system, your epigenetics, et cetera, everything tied together in a way that a practitioner could easily implement this in their practice, could easily work with a client, or a patient could easily understand and therefore optimize their health. The other thing that I liked about it was the approach of making it a nonprofit, because having a nonprofit really demonstrates the genuineness of the team behind it. None of us here take salaries from health optimization medicine and practice. We're all donating our time. And the intention is to really create that bifurcation point. And we're devoting that time, that energy, if you will, into creating that bifurcation point, which is very needed. I think, you can look at statistics in the US, and 66% of the people are overweight, right?
94% have mitochondrial dysfunction. It's pretty bad. Yeah.
It's pretty bad. And so something is very needed. And it became very apparent to me that introducing that bifurcation point in health was health optimization, or is health optimization medicine and practice.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And I think what we've done over the last many years now, since 2017, slowly, because we donated our time, and as Boomer mentioned, we're a nonprofit here, but we created the coursework as a reflection of Dr. Ted's practice, with a lot of his help and his supervision, and then also being trained in it. So both, you and I, Boomer, are both health optimization practitioners. I'm a health optimization medicine practitioner because I'm a physician, and Boomer is a health optimization practitioner because he's not a physician. He doesn't pretend to give medical advice most of the time. But Boomer, what I wanted to kind of transition for you is that it was your impetus here for us to start creating symposiums. So this is our second symposium this year. Last year, we did it in collaboration with Microbiome Labs. It was a fantastic time, but it was really your impetus, your drive to do this. What was your reason behind it? And what are you trying for us to be able to accomplish by creating these?
One of the interesting statistics, and you guys would be able to recall it off the top of your heads probably better than me, is physician burnout. And there's also this trend of telemedicine and telehealth, right? Physician burnout, I've been through burnout many times in my career, and I know quite what that's like, and sometimes how difficult it is to open up and just tell people that you're experiencing telemedicine, telehealth. While it's great that you can practice it anywhere in the world, it can be a very lonely experience.
Yeah.
So when you start to look at the elements of how the symposium came together, a big one there was community. So how do we get together this group of people who are all unified in this mission of creating this bifurcation point for health? And how do we do it in a fun way? Because at our for-profit company, we like to call ourselves internally, a fun bunch of people. And this plays, something like that. But, this plays very well into our nonprofit as well. And so when you give a group of practitioners who are predominantly practicing telehealth or are working as entrepreneurs, which itself, when you're running a business, is a very lonely position to be in.
Right.
If you give them that element of community and show that they're not the only people out there, the idea is to reinforce that and to reinforce the message and to put strength behind the wave, because community is really what's going to drive this mission forward. We've done that as well in the cohorts too, right? And so we've now introduced cohort style classes. All of that is on the belief that, we're evolutionary tribal individuals, right? And so we need our tribes. And this is a way for us to get our tribe together, in the symposium's case, at least annually.
Yeah. I mean, I think the symposium is a fantastic community event. And I love what we've been able to accomplish last year with our event in Florida and the one we'll have here in Las Vegas before A4M at Caesar's Palace. And what I love about it also is that, we're bringing in some really amazing speakers overall. This is really something where we're trying to create community within the people that have been trained in HOMeHOPE. We're also looking to bring more people in that are interested in what HOMeHOPE is all about and these bifurcation points and learning things that weren't taught in medical school and finding ways to really work on health and not just treat disease and illness. And at the same time, bringing in some amazing speakers doing amazing work across the health spectrum. I don't know if you have any favorites.
Let me interject here, because I think one of the things that the community brings is a network, and we've talked about networks already, right? Mainly in terms of biochemistry, but networks also exist among people. And Scott, you've leveraged your network incredibly here to bring in speakers to demonstrate that really with health optimization medicine practice, if you're a practitioner, if you're a part of the tribe, you're really going to have access to these experts. And so a couple of them that I want to touch on and just ask you about, because you're largely responsible for these connections. Let's talk first about Lucia. Sure. Dr. Veronica, Stanford University, Epigenetics. She's been co-creator of the Epigenetics module along with you. Talk to us a little bit about what we hope to learn from Lucia.
Yeah, so Dr. Lucia Veronica is a fantastic human. She's originally from Italy, so she's got a great Italian accent and has lots of good hand signals and hand waving when she talks, which I love too. But I remember meeting with her when we were creating the Epigenetics course for the HOMeHOPE Essential Certification. And I think even before that, Dr. Ted, she actually was in Manila with you, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did invite her to lecture on epigenetics. Actually, Scott, just a slide here. I started the framework in 2009. It's already 2024. And somewhere along the way there, we haven't said explicitly what the 7 pillars of HOMeHOPE are, and one of them is epigenetics. And every year I was inviting a different speaker to speak on the different pillars of HOMeHOPE. And that was in Manila, because that's where I started it, because that's where I also was able to convince a company or an enterprise to build, the first metabolomics laboratory to serve Southeast Asia. So, it's been a wonderful experience there, but then also telling us that the challenges that we encounter when we are introducing something new like this one, right? So Lucia was then talking about, methylation markers and small interfering mRNAs and so on. And the doctors to whom she was lecturing to, mainly was it's like, oh my God, where is this coming from? And this is very new, but this is already old, right? So considering internet time, this is already old. There are already tests, for example, epigenetic tests, albeit incomplete. We can actually use them as trends. In fact, you're mentioning her. One of the things that I do is to hold a candle to illness medicine doctors, especially metabolic disease physicians, right? And say, okay, here's your epigenetics test for this patient. Okay, give your drug. And then 6 months later, we retest. And of course, it's like everything goes to hell, right? Okay, let me try it my way. And then 6 months later, everything just gets back to a younger state. So you can see the difference in the way we approach things can actually be measured with these new markers. And Lucia is certainly one of those who bring this, because she's such an excellent educator, right?
Yeah.
So let me kind of go into the pillars here, because we've talked about just epigenetics there. We actually have guests representing several other pillars too,
We do. Yeah.
right? So one of those is Kiran Krishna on the gut immune system, right? He's going to be speaking about skin, but Scott, do you want to talk a little bit about Kiran and how our relationship with Kiran has kind of grown over the years?
Yeah. So Kiran is the former CEO of Microbiome Labs, then other names that I don't remember after that, after being acquired a couple different times. But he's a fantastic human being. He's a PhD. He's been a researcher for many years. And this is actually another Dr. Ted longtime connection as well.
Yeah, I brought him to Manila also. And then he went on traveling with me in the south of Spain and south of France, actually, to lecture. And the attendees were the key opinion leaders of the country, the Philippines at the time. And, we had a lot of time. They had a lot of fun doing that. And also I saw the breadth and depth of his knowledge and this whole thing. And he's really passionate about this. Just as when it was declared that the gut immune system is the largest immune system of the body, I went all gung-ho over it, because it's like, well, it does make sense. When you are deriving your energy from food, the first thing that you should be protected from is actually the things that you shouldn't be getting from food. And therefore, that's the immune system right there. Kiran is a fantastic...
Dr. Ted quote is, the Department of Defense has the largest budget, right?
Yes. Yes.
One of my other favorites is that the skin is the reverse gut.
Yeah, the skin is the reverse gut. And Kiran is talking about the skin is the reverse gut. And I always say, don't put in your skin what you're not willing to put in your mouth and eat. So... the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing categories in the metabolome. There's a human metabolome database, by the way. There's not only a human genome database, for those of you who would like to know. One of the fastest growing metabolites that are found in the human body is cosmetics, especially in women, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited for Kiran to speak about leaky skin and understanding that concept a little bit more. I was actually talking to another friend about quorum sensing and bacterial counts and various other things that are really associated with leaky skin that I wasn't actually aware of. But what's interesting, what you just mentioned, Ted, about cosmetics and toxicity, is that we have another speaker that's going to be there that we all know and love.
Talking about really another pillar, the exposome, and he actually happens to be one of your neighbors, Scott.
He is.
Dr. Chris Shade, and he's a person that's been around for a long time, founder of Quicksilver Scientific. But talk about some of the things that we're going to learn from Dr. Shade.
Well, Chris is a fantastic speaker. He can speak at conferences for 7 to 8 hours on his own. So we appreciate that he'll only speak for about 45 minutes at ours at this time. But he's, as you said, he's right down the road, and he's kind of one of the pioneers in detoxification, mercury specifically, mercury analysis. And he has a whole line of things, as we all know, on the nanoliposomal side. But Chris is going to be coming and speaking about doing a masterclass in detoxification. And he actually did a fantastic job when I interviewed him for our podcast back in the beginning when we first started as well. But he's always coming up with fantastically interesting formulas and has a fantastic part of his R&D lab that Dr. Ted and I got to tour around.
Yeah, well, Chris is just a fantastic all-around human being. He's one of the most generous people I've known. When I was doing nanoliposomes in my R&D kitchen lab here at my place, it's like I asked him what he was actually professionally using. He just gave it to me. It's like, oh, there. Now you know one of the secrets that we use for our nanoliposomal technology. And just like that, right? And we've bonded over the use of a certain psychotropic molecules and all of that, because it's a special interest. And also his special interest in a type of spirituality that I also happen to practice. So it's just really fun, because when you went and visited their huge facility over in Colorado, in front of we were late, and in front of all these people, instead of just giving me a hug, he basically lifted me into the air and just was grateful. Was grateful that I actually was there. So, but as you said, Chris can actually go very deeply into detox mechanisms, right?
Yes.
It's a lecture of his is more than a PhD course really in detox. In fact, the information he gives is very specialized because he really knows the innards of how the body detoxifies. And then also, like me, what you know informs your products, right? And so for him, when he develops his products, he actually puts his heart and soul into, what he knows about the product itself and how it might be more efficiently delivered with such high purity. And that's why his products work, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for him to be there. I think another module of the essential certification is bioenergetics. And we have a really great speaker coming from Germany, Dr. Michael Weber, who is the founder of Weber Laser over there that Boomer has on his arm over there. That's the Endolight. And so he's going to be speaking about photobiomodulation and various types of spectrums of light and how this is affecting mitochondrial function, how it's affecting energy production overall, detoxification pathways, infection. I'll talk about the difference between photobiomodulation and photodynamic therapy, which I just learned actually recently, where photodynamic therapy is actually for more of a therapeutic use of light as opposed to photobiomodulation, which is more just giving light kind of deal. The photodynamic therapy is actually with an activator like methylene blue, for example. So interesting like that. So I'm excited for him.
Yeah, actually, that was after clinical metabolomics. The mitochondria was the first, all the first 7 pillars, all the lectures there, I actually developed myself with the help of 4 of the first pioneers that I trained in the Philippines on health optimization medicine. And one was a family med specialist. The other one was an OBGYN. One was a surgeon, and the other one is a developmental pediatrician, right? So, these are all illness medicine doctors who think that the time for health is now and to fix the foundational health is best. So the mitochondrial module actually I delivered as a 2-hour lecture, and it was like a shock to me that when I asked for CME credits for that particular lecture, they didn't want to give it to me because they said that physicians already know what mitochondria are. That's just like my most memorable experience with the regulatory commission, right? So you could see how very much we have ignored the fundamentals or the basics. And it's easy to ignore it, as I said, because, biochemistry is really, a fearsome subject for many people. But when you take a look at it in terms of vitamins, minerals, cofactors, etc., it becomes more practical. So one of the things that we recommend, in fact, these days is like, hey, why don't you replace that C-suite MRI that you get every year for nothing, right? Replace it with a metabolomic test, and let's see whether or not we could rev up that mitochondria. And, as our lecturer will go, well, you can also rev up the mitochondria with photobiomodulation. Here's how you can do it. That's
Love it. And then we have a whole bunch of actually additional speakers, including the 3 of us that are going to be speaking. But before we get there, we have Dr. Amy Killen, who's going to be speaking about hormone replacement therapy in women, myths and missteps. Amy's a fantastic teacher. She does a lot of work with women in hormone optimization, talking about perimenopause and menopausal women specifically. So that'll be really a great lecture. We'll also have Dr. Jeff Glad, who's the Chief Medical Officer of FullScript. Jeff is also an amazing human, and he's also going to chat a little bit about their recent purchase of Rupa Health and like some of these journeys that they're creating at FullScript with laboratory analysis, and very excited for that. But I want to know, Dr. Ted and Boomer, what are you guys going to talk about? Boomer, what are you going to talk about?
Well, it's kind of funny because I sit here and look at all of what all the speakers are talking about, and Dr. Scott's speaking about the immune system, Ted's speaking about artificial intelligence. We have people coming in to talk about, for practitioners specifically, email marketing, paid ads, those kind of things, and growing your business, and sex education, cannabinoids, all this stuff. And so you kind of look at it and you're like, what the fuck do I talk about here? And I thought long and hard about this, and it's just like, how do you get people to do things? So if you're like a practitioner, it's
so appropriate.
If you're a practitioner and you're working with clients, oftentimes that you can write out these beautiful protocols, but like, how do you actually get the person to adhere to it? How do you get them to go out and take the 7,000 steps a day? And so the talk that I'll be giving, which Scott, you can tell me how long I'm actually talking for, but the talk that I'll be giving is more focused on, so in 5 minutes, I'm going to give you the 93 different modes of behavior change, each one of them, and then break it down into the 6 that actually work and show you how that might work in a clinical practice. So the idea is, all of these protocols are fantastic and incredibly useful. But when it comes to, putting the nose to the grindstone, so to speak, how do you actually get your patients to do something? Mm-hmm. And this has 2 benefits for people. Well, actually it's 3. One is if you are trying to change your own habits, you might have some benefits and takeaways from this lecture. 2, getting your own patients to adhere to it. But 3, if you are a practitioner and want to scale your business, one of the areas that you might look to implement or hire for is a health coach. That's because these people can be very good at things like nudging in order to encourage behavior change. And behavior change leads to great testimonials, leads to scaling your practice, et cetera, but also leads to great patient outcomes. So I'm going to talk about behavior change in 5 minutes or less, according to Dr. Scott.
30 minutes. You get 30. You're good.
Okay, 30. Perfect.
30,
all right. So I can cover 96 elements of behavior change.
At least.
Yeah.
And Dr. Ted, I don't even actually know if you're going to be there or if you're just going to be a hologram of you at our conference. No, he's going to be there, everybody. But so Ted, I know you're going to give 2 lectures. One's going to be on the introduction to HOMeHOPE and the framework, which is extremely important.
Yes.
And I know you can't give us a lot of details now because it's still under wraps and it's still
we haven't had everybody listening to this on an NDA. So it's
so that's difficult to do on YouTube, I would imagine. But Ted, what can you tell us about your creation or what's going to be give us a hint, just a little hint.
Yeah, well, it's about actually using artificial intelligence to solve an old problem, right? It actually solves several old problems. Number one is that when you read a test result like me, it used to take 5 hours for me to read something as complex. And now even if I'm seasoned, it still takes me 1 to 2 hours to actually dissect the whole thing. So I said, why not use artificial intelligence to work on this thing? If you could spit out to me the results in like 5 or 10 minutes, I'm happy. That's significant improvement for 1 to 2 hours, right? And the second thing is that to be able to have your clients or your patients be able to talk to you even if you're not there. So, and those are all possible now. It's just that where the whiz bang is, as Boomer likes to say, is in the interface that you're using. So when you say it's like much of the heavy hefting has been done underneath the hood, but what's the wowing effect is actually just at the interface, which is usually the case, right? The difficult part is in the engine, but the wow effect is in the interface. But all of these are very, very new. And many of the technologies may change already by December, in fact, when it releases. So I'm trying to make this what I'm doing. I'm coding myself. So I'm making it as general as possible and as easy as possible for 2 things. I have 2 things about invention, right? One, laziness is a mother of invention. When I see a pile of metabolomics test results that I have to interpret, it's like, holy fuck, how do I do this, right? This will take 5 hours of my time. And then the second one is necessity is the mother of invention, right? So when a patient or a client of yours has to reach you right away and wants to know about the results, and you're not available, you are available virtually. Right. And can discuss with you the test results to the best that you have given it your knowledge. Right? So it's going to be fun.
That sounds exciting. Yeah, I'm excited for your Steve Jobs moment, but I don't think you're a turtleneck kind of guy. I think you're more of a bolo tie kind of guy, as far as I'm aware. And then we can't forget that Jody Duvall, the CEO of HOMeHOPE in Australia, she's going to be speaking.
Hold on, we haven't heard about you. You
I know. You can talk about me, but I don't want to. I want to make sure.
Are we going to do a Toby Keith song? We can talk about me.
As part of Scott's anti-aging regimen, I have actually told him to put his hair down in a bang so that forehead disappears.
I'm working on it. I'm working on that.
The 80s are coming back, so we're trying to bring back the flock of seagulls. But let's go with Jody. You mentioned and Jody's love of cannabinoids and things. But let's
so Jody is going to be speaking about cannabis and sexual health optimization, basically, and so that's going to be a fun topic. Jody, she spoke about cannabis last year, I think, as well at the HOMeHOPE Symposium. So this year she's kind of focusing more on the sexual aspects of optimization using cannabis, which would be very interesting.
And Jody, for everybody who's unfamiliar with her, although you probably listen to this podcast, have heard her voice multiple times. She's a lecturer at, I believe, Endeavor Health, right? And has taught many naturopaths over the years. And so I've kind of turned to Jody as my resource for all things cannabis. And over the years, learning particularly about the novel and minor cannabinoids has been very helpful through Jody.
Oh, I love Jody because we both compound things. So it's like, oh, you don't have this? Okay, let's make a capsule out of it. Or let's make a suppository out of it. Or, it's just like if you have the materials, okay, let's grind them. Let's do that. And I like that.
Yeah.
There's something about being a sort of like the apothecary of the old times, where you actually grind in a mortar and pestle and put them in capsules and all of that. But she's fun because she researches what she puts in her products and then puts them in, and actually has real world experience on actually using them on her patients, and she knows which ones work and which she doesn't, right? And she also teaches in a nutrition school, right? So she's a really a fun speaker too, because you love her Australian accent. You just have to really make sure that the R's are rolling properly or not rolling properly in your head.
Cheers.
Depending on what she's saying, yeah. And so, yes, there are two other speakers actually. So before me, we'll also have Nicole Baer. Nicole is one of our previous students, our health optimization practitioner student. She's based out in Northern California, and we're going to have a fireside chat with her and I think Boomer. You guys will chat and have a discussion about what it is to become a HOPE student and how it is to actually start implementing these things in clinical practice, which she was already, as a practitioner, doing lots of amazing work. And now I'm excited to hear how she's actually implementing this foundational framework alongside the work that she's already doing. She always has very interesting patients, that's for sure, or clients in her case.
Very complex cases.
Very complex cases, yeah.
And so, Dr. Scott, aside from bringing back Flock of Seagulls,
I tried a little bit for you,
and a little bit of the 1980s look, we know that you're going to be singing "Living on a Prayer" on stage, but
I'll bring my guitar.
What else are you going to be talking?
Maybe I could do it with my guitar at my whole presentation this time around.
Perfect.
Make it a singing lecture.
And if you do that, I'll do mine in an interpretive dance, and we'll just call it
as long as you bring some ribbons to do some,
Yes,
that'd be perfect.
It would be awesome.
Yeah. So what I'm going to be talking about is immune system health optimization, and I'm going to do this in the realm of looking at, actually in the frame of our evolutionary medicine module. This is the one that Dr. Ted actually created, and looking at the cell danger response specifically as it relates to the immune system. And as a feature of all of that, I will be talking about the zombie mushroom known as cordyceps and cordycepin, the active ingredient that has a modulatory effect on things like NF-kappa B, mTOR, AMP kinase, and others that are part of the CDR as well. So it's yet to be written, but I'm excited to write it for this, and I'm excited to be one of the speakers, and it's going to be a great time.
So
well, it's yet to be written. Like, I still have to finish coding, right? So it makes the two of us.
Yeah, I mean 3 actually. So let's kind of wrap this up and just summarize for everybody. December 11th and 12th, Caesar's Palace, Health Optimization Medicine and Practice Symposium. We're limiting the attendance to 75 people, which means that the lecturer to attendee ratio is quite in your favor, in the sense that everybody's going to be able to ask questions of their favorite lecturers. We also have a little bit of a social gathering at a personal favorite art gallery, Meow Wolf, for art installation in Las Vegas. And it's just going to be an all-around good time. If you guys have been to the symposium last year, we got a lot of comments on just the element of community, right? And just being able to be with other like-minded individuals, all trying to create that bifurcation point for health. So we hope you guys can join us. Health Optimization Medicine and Practice Symposium, December 11th and 12th. HOMeHOPE.org, prescriptions.com will give you all of that information.
If you guys are already coming to A4M, we do have a potential discount available for you. So you can head over to the website and check that out at HOMeHOPE.org. If you haven't gotten your A4M ticket and you'd like to go to A4M as well as our symposium, you can purchase a bundle where you get your symposium ticket for free for ours if you purchase your A4M ticket through us. So that's also a possibility. So if you're thinking about going to Vegas but haven't made your plans yet, please check us out. It'll just be a couple extra days ahead of time. You get to hang out with us and some amazing speakers. So yeah, we hope to see some of you there, and it's going to be a fantastic event. I'm excited.
Cool. Can you believe I actually referenced Toby Keith in this conversation?
I can't even. I just can't
okay.
even.
Yeah,
Boomer. I
can't even imagine.
I mean, you're going to be going to see Garth Brooks at the Sphere before Vegas is what I heard.
He's at Caesar's Palace, but let's see. If anybody wants to join me for that too, you can hit me up on my OnlyFans channel, and we'll get
speaking
it.
about his, I know body mass index is now passé, but has anyone computed for Garth Brooks's BMI?
Maybe he's following everybody else's lead and taking Ozempic. So
yeah, you never know. Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap this one up, guys.
Yeah.
So for everybody listening, come see us at the symposium, December 11th and 12th, Caesar's Palace, the original Julius abode, and we'll see you guys there.
Take care, everybody.